That was a small thing. I thought he is a person standing.
Yeah, actually, I look cool with that ribbon on. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. It's a gentleman.
Straight,
Yeah,
that's all.
absolutely. So excellent.
I've got a bigger one than you.
I'm trying to look stylish,
Did you
but suited
Look.
up like an MP.
Look, there's no point in not, if you're going to stand, you're going to stand. Not me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
And I quite like Friends of Al Axel anyway.
it's all
They
sorts
are
of friends.
really good, aren't they? Have you listened to Ishmael Patel recently?
I know a guy called Ismail Patel, but I think he's from.
I know he's a guy
from Leicester.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's actually really good.
It's amazing what sort of support you get running an election campaign. I've had to reply to all these pledges for like the last 5 weeks. I've been a parliamentary candidate before, a prospective parliamentary candidate. But you just have all these people writing from you, all these causes, lots from the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign, but from everyone. Like this morning, a guy called J. and Eric Holmes sent me a 3rd book of poems that he's published about Palestine. Just asked me to repost it and share it because Marissa Burrard has allowed him to use some of his daily drawings as illustrations, and it's just a way to support the people of Palestine through art, through poetry, whatever.
Got some things on. So I'm a vegetarian, you see.
Are you?
So I've got to be very careful. But I got a falafel wrap.
Yeah, that's nice. That is.
Yeah. That is my standard dish, whether I'm in Portugal, sometimes Spain, or Berlin. Because in Berlin, there's lots of places there which are Turks, and I depend upon the Turkish food to survive in Berlin. Because otherwise, it's just meat.
Well, it's high quality, isn't it? There's a restaurant down Ball Hill. I was just leafleting yesterday, and I there quite regularly. But,
that guy there is I don't know if it's the same guy. He's a very devout believer. The guy in charge of it. He's very, very, very devout.
I actually used to own a cocktail bar. It was London's first organic cocktail bar and vegan restaurant, Camden Lock.
Oh God!
So that's going back a bit, but one of the things I did when I was in London. I was starting a
soup as well. Hey.
food company.
I think I know where I might be coming for tea tonight.
There's another very good Lebanese restaurant in Coventry. There's another very good Lebanese restaurant in Coventry. I'm just trying to remember its name. So it's on the butts.
Yeah.
What's it called? Eat Food Mood, I think it's called.
It's I'll think of it.
Yeah.
I've actually have been there, and it's very good.
Yes. We've got a grand piano, I think, as your kitchen. It's a nice place. A bit expensive though.
Usually combined with a Thai one
as well. It's got a Thai restaurant on the back.
Lebanese. I prefer the Lebanese myself.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous there.
I just love what a term Lebanese food is. Basically, you can get anything in Greece or Turkey.
Yeah.
Or Israel, as they try to pretend it's Israeli food. Yeah, anyway,
Okay.
getting on the campaign, I would say after this, got to actually expand and get yourself known. The 2 areas that you were saying here and Willenhall,
yeah, and potentially nationally as well, because I have some following now, and I've also got some archaeological research that is quite interesting. I'm trying to pursue after this election.
But what I'm thinking of is getting people around, boots on the ground.
Forming a group and networking. Well, that's what we're doing with our WhatsApp group.
We can call upon to get people to do.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sadiq, hope everybody's well. We're doing a live show, a breakfast show. Later on tonight, we have a podcast with Brother Paul Bedson, who's here in Coventry on behalf of the Workers' Party of Britain. And it's really nice to bump into him and get his ideas about his goals here in Coventry. If you've got any questions, please put it in the chat, and we can put it forward to Paul for some responses.
So there's a West Midlands Workers' Party group.
Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, and let's continue to build this channel. Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, then you would be access to the general secretary and talking to George and that sort of thing if you need to be. And get to a sort of deep level with the members of the Workers' Party. Just to give you a bit of history, I mean, I started really getting excited about them on the 29th of February, which was the leap year. And that's when George got elected into Rochdale. That day was exceptional. Our membership grew from about 300-400 to 5,000 in the next few weeks. Within about a month, it went from 300 to 5,000 after that event.
Just on the side
It gave everybody hope.
Just on the side there, what I did notice, talking to a friend of mine, or rather we did spot, is that on the Coventry, on the PSC, we made a bet that they would never allow George to speak on any platform. And how right we were. Here's an MP who got in on the basis of Gaza. We're Palestine Solidarity Campaign. Oh, maybe there's a link between George getting in on Gaza and the PSC. And it's an obvious thing. He should have been highlighted as the man of the day, of the hour. And we said, he won't be invited to speak in Birmingham. He even went to one of the big rallies in Birmingham.
Yeah.
And he was there on the ground. Hello, I'm here. And they wouldn't let him speak.
It's strange because a Workers' Party in Birmingham did a lot of work with them. They've been out on the marches and organising their leafleting afterwards and stuff like that.
They're sectarian as hell.
Yeah. Well, that's right.
Anyone that don't care what party who got in on Gaza and I was in charge of a campaign, please speak. I beg you. We'll supply a car. Do you want lunch? Do you want a train ticket?
Yeah. 38,000 people have died, most of them women and children.
Please help.
80,000, what is it?
But not
injured, maimed.
No.
Limbs torn off.
This is what
Galloway talks about.
Fundamentally,
150,000.
Fundamentally, we are by ourselves in some ways, and we've got to make a breakthrough. We're the ones who are going to do it. No point in relying on anyone else.
Yeah.
It will be a hindrance.
Well, that's why I think this election was called early. Sunak. It was Rishi Sunak. He came out after that election in February on the little steps, being a little miniature Roland Rat, and complaining about George Galloway and sectarian politics.
I noticed that.
Then we end up a few weeks later with a surprise early election, and people on the Times Radio, Talk Radio, they're like, "Oh, reform! There must be reform that caused that." I don't think it was. I think it was Workers' Party, and they were just. If we'd got to October, we could have had 600 candidates by then. So they called it early. We had 120 in the first wave. We got another 200 in the 120 in the second wave. But a few of them got chopped down for different reasons. They got the guy in rugby, Paul. He had family problems, so he couldn't stand, and people got deselected. But we got 152 odd over the line.
Yeah.
And the Sutton Coldfield guys suspended his campaign yesterday because of the attack, which is horrifying. And well, we'll have to wait till the police investigate that to comment on it a bit further.
I have my theories that I've told you about, but we'll keep it quiet
for that. But that's still terrible charity. And again, we had an incident in the local elections where someone drove a car into the Workers' Party.
No.
Yeah, so everybody watching right now, especially in the UK, don't forget to have your say, and we have to get rid of these two main parties. Of course, the Tories and the Labour Party. We need to get rid of them. So please put in the comments which party you'll be voting for tomorrow, isn't it? So guys, just please write in the chat who you're voting for. And of course, Paul Benson here is with me, and he's on behalf of the Workers' Party of Britain. Of course, you're doing a postal vote. Okay, fantastic.
It's been great working with you as such. It's been great working with you as such.
Yeah, people have gone into the places of worship to promote the Workers' Party, and going through some of the comments. So in front of me right now, brothers and sisters, we got Paul, who is it Coventry East or is it West?
East.
That's right.
East.
And my name in Islam is Adam. So I reverted 8 years ago, and yes, I have been in places of worship, but not. I've always taken off my badges and rosettes and whatever, done my prayers, and then wandered outside to see what people think in that community, really, to a fantastic response, to be honest. I'm working with Dr. Muhammad Ali Syed in Coventry South. His mosque is the main Zena mosque on the Falls Hill Road. So we actually sort of gone to pray together. He's met up on one side where everyone goes to the south, and I go to people go over the bridge to the east. We just chat there. I've met reverts and brothers, Muslims, all sorts, sisters who just are in tune with our message. Really, it's above a faith-based thing. I think Workers' Party combines all faiths we want to, and no faiths at all. Just people of righteous, conscious, good mind, concerned over the genocide in Gaza, concerned over the conditions in the UK, and the corporate interests controlling us. Issues like net zero and NATO, particularly defence spending, where we offer a real alternative. We spend 57 million or something a year on defence. 6.5 of that is on nuclear. 12,000 a minute, I think it is, pounds we could save and spend on the workers, spend on the working families of Britain, to improve the standards of our services, to improve the sewage problems, the manhole, the potholes, everything. And from the ground up, we intend to nationalise the rail, not only like Labour, but we intend to set up a consultancy body to check out all the other electricity, water, gas companies, logistics, which includes Parcel Force, Royal Mail, Post Office, and see how we could manage this better as a country. Fully nationalise the NHS and follow Jeremy Corbyn's model of a national care service to involve social work as well, and fund this really just by slashing the defence and also the 5% windfall tax on 10 million or plus estates, a Jeremy Corbyn billionaire tax, basically, or a COVID tax, as we like to call it, a corona tax. Thank you. I better not do that while I'm on camera, but just.
I can put the camera on different, it's not a problem.
Might have to have a break and I
yeah,
later
no
or something.
I'll put the camera on myself for a second.
Sure.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi, guys. Just a quick reminder. Just a quick reminder that it is time to make a change. And I mentioned earlier that I feel that especially if the Asian community is kind of bound, or they kind of have this type of link with traditional voting systems where they vote for, even though the party that they vote for is quite negative towards the Muslims and the Asian community, and they speak very negative regarding immigration, migration, and of course, me being a third generation of a Pakistani, who my grandparents came here first, and of course, my parents, and then myself, and I do feel that the Labour Party and the Tories, as George Galloway's famous saying is, they actually are the cheeks of the same ass, and both of them need to be spanked. As Hamza always says on Hamza's Den, is that the best way to deal with these two parties is to, as you do with a little child, is pull the pants down, give him a little spank, and time to go home. And I think this is what has to be done, is that we have to make a stance now. If you don't vote, or if you don't have your say now, I'm going to be very disappointed. This is a fantastic opportunity to change and make a change. So my request to the brothers and sisters, especially here in Coventry, is to go out and do your bit. And after going through some of the statements of the Workers' Party of Britain, of course, you guys have been watching George Galloway on his podcast called The Moats, and is reaching people around the world. And initially, I did feel that George Galloway was I felt like he was maybe frustrated, maybe he's the only voice, or a voice that is not restricted in his opinions. But the fact that other people have started to come forward and link with George Galloway and have the same thought process, I think, for me, after watching George Galloway for many years, I think he's doing a fantastic job, and I think he's got many supporters. And I still think there are some closet supporters who really support him, but are too afraid to speak up due to their political allegiance or financial allegiance to particular parties and organizations. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, guys. Feel free to write in the chat. If you've got any questions, please put it forward, and hopefully we can put them across. But it's early morning here in Coventry. It's 10:35, and hopefully I'll be going out with Brother Paul and getting some footage of him interacting with the local community here. So stay tuned for that. And then 7 p.m. tonight, we'll be doing a podcast with all the members and the candidates from the Workers' Party tonight at 7 p.m. on my channel. So don't forget to look out for that podcast. I've got some very interesting questions for Paul and the other members of the Working Party of Britain. So stay tuned for that, inshallah. Here in Coventry, and I'm sure across the nation, in majority of the councillors and candidates have let us down big time. If you guys want to write in the chat how you feel regarding your councillors, your candidates, and have they done a good job or have they done a bad job? But unfortunately, even though they do a bad job, we still vote for them. We still push them forward. And it's true, isn't it?
Yeah, true.
It's true. It's absolutely true.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to go out shortly, and hopefully I'll get some footage of Paul interacting with the community, do some pamphlet and some visits to local businesses and local members of the community. So inshallah, stay tuned for that. So you know what I find quite interesting is that you've got the debates taking place in America with Joe Biden and Trump, and at the same time you've got the debates taking place with Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer. Do you think they were planned to be at the same time? I find that so dodgy, that they're doing the elections and the debates at the same time. And these four people are possibly the most powerful people in the Western world. Would you say that?
I would say it's a coincidence and possibly partially planned. If I wouldn't want to say too much. What I would say is that I think that the treatment of the Workers' Party has been terribly unfair in this election. We've not been on the leaders' debates. Galloway has been an elected MP, and he's not been able to face Nigel Farage. He put a call out to Nigel Farage, who turned down the offer for a debate, saying he hadn't got time. Whereas George Galloway, he went and debated with Piers Morgan.
Poor Piers Morgan, yes.
And I think that got over 7 million views by the weekend. It may be 10 million views now. But why hasn't Nigel Farage got the time for that sort of publicity?
Yeah.
I do feel that's a bit of a betrayal of democracy to some extent.
Absolutely.
But what Workers' Party is doing this election is, once we get over 150,000 votes combined, and we only need 1,000 votes each per candidate standing, which I think we're going to get well above that. Once we've done that, we will get polling, we'll get rights for our MPs to speak more in Commons and things like that. So that's our first game. That's our first, what we're playing for now, to get into that Premier League of parties that does get polled. Because we haven't had, none of the polls, not even one poll has polled anybody about are they going to vote for the Workers' Party. We've done some local polling on our own, but we haven't even been featured. So how the count will go for all of us tomorrow, we have no clue. We have no polls anyway to tell us what. We just have good vibes from the street and some candidates doing local polling with, sort of samples of thousands saying that they're getting over 30% in some constituencies. So it could be a shockwave tomorrow for the Workers' Party. We will see. We've got some great candidates. We've got Aroma Hassan standing in Ashton-under-Lyme against Angela Rayner. We've got independents as well, like Andrew Feinstein supporting against Starmer. Sush Kamara in Hove is also very popular. And Jeremy Corbyn, we're not standing against him. So we'll see how this wave of independents and Workers' Party get on tomorrow. But I suspect we'll get some very good results. And we'll make a footprint. Really, a footprint in Coventry is what I'm trying to get. How big it will be, we'll see. So I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, just recently you had a young lady who whistleblowed against the Labour Party. I forgot her name now.
I've got a lot of female candidates.
Is it Halima?
Could be Halima Khan in Stratford.
Yes.
And Bow.
Yeah.
She's a very good orator.
Yeah.
I've been watching her campaign. Galloway met with her and the candidate, an independent candidate for Bethnal Green, I think it is now. They split constituencies up, but they did a blow away meeting as Galloway does whenever he turns up. But Halima Khan is also one of our exceptionally good speakers.
Halima Khan, yeah.
On all sorts of issues, so I think we'll do very well there. We'll see.
But this is what I initially said, Paul, is that once you break through the old generation, especially around Folsall, and you get to the youngsters, they will come running. They will coming towards the party, your party, no doubt about it, because they're fed up with the corruption that takes place here in Folsall with councillors getting into positions, buying properties while they were councillors. They got it cheaper, and then they sell them off more expensive. I could go on. Like I said, I'm from this area and I know this area very, very well. And you see the behaviours of some of the councillors here. And unfortunately, brothers and sisters, the majority of the councillors here are Pakistani Muslims, and they really give a bad image towards the Muslims and the councillors. And this is why the people here in Folsall have kind of given up. I think they kind of it's like somebody who's just got no hope anymore, and that's how it feels here in Coventry. But now with Paul here with the Workers' Party, and this is why I was very happy to see him the other day, like a breath of fresh air. This is the chance of people to have their say and make a change. You have to do it now. So my sincere request to the people of Coventry is go out there now and have your say. I know the local, sorry Paul, and I'm going on a monologue, but I know the problem here before with the local elections were that even though there's a brother, Kiani, who is an independent candidate, the other two parties put another person as an independent candidate on the slips, even though no one has ever seen that person, just to confuse the people of Coventry. I think some type of dodgy business was taking place where they just add another name with the independent party, so people won't vote for Kiani. And I've seen that with my own eyes, and no one has ever seen that ghost of a person from the candidate party. And I'm hoping that the Workers' Party of Britain will get a fair shake, and I think they will hit numbers. I'll be very surprised if they don't hit numbers way beyond that they expect. And my du'as and my supplications and my prayers are with the people from the Workers' Party, because they are a breath of fresh air, and I'm really excited, full of energy, that God willing that they will reach the goal that they aiming for. Sorry about that. I just wanted to.
No problem. I mean, and we're also looking for new members. We're looking for people to stand for council as well in the future. We're working with the Coventry Citizens Party, who have a raft of very good local issues that are a breath of fresh air, as you mentioned, for Coventry, or could be.
Yeah.
And one of their candidates, Paul Cowley, he came within 57 votes of getting onto the council. He got 2,450, and Labour got 2,500 in Willenhall and where I live. And we're hoping Workers' Party can support that type of cause, get him over the line somehow, with my support somehow, and get more candidates into other wards, working with good people if we can find them in those constituencies, so I can see the problems in this area.
John, just a quick one from you, mate. You know, you
No,
said.
so
You sure?
I ain't in the working party, so I can't really
Okay,
comment
alright.
to see.
We're supporters still, but
Yeah,
I mean,
no, that's the problem. So my comment is exactly, you know.
I'm just gonna get some tissue paper.
Yeah. If
If
I
you want,
was, yeah, fair enough.
just want to hold that.
Okay.
I'll just get some tissue paper.
sure. If you've got any questions for me, John, to answer, or
John's the new camera.
yes, he's the new interviewer for Coventry FF.
So, thank you, John. So, Paul, how do you feel your response from the local people of Coventry? How do you feel that it's been?
In some areas, it's been overwhelming. In Foleshill, especially. Me and Muhammad Ali went around all the shops in Foleshill on Saturday, and were able to go into almost all the barbers and the Islamic shops, and even sort of African shops, and explain who I was, ask them if we put up posters with blue tack. And many of them, I would say 10 to 20 shops, I lost count, put up our posters all up Foleshill Road. And we're just very supportive of the cause. Many of them know George Galloway. A lot of them didn't, and I think that's our task this election, really, just to get the word out, who we are, what we're standing for, and we're available as a choice.
Yeah.
You've got a voice. Here we are. You know, if you want to make your statement at the polls tomorrow, you've got something different from the Uni Party. You've got something different from the Greens, Lib Dems, Reform. On the left, which is where Coventry really wants to vote. They don't want to vote Reform, really. They're being forced into that, I think, because of the massive marketing that Reform are getting. They've got a millionaire Muslim businessmen supporting millions, and they've got no financial worries at all. They get all their leaflets and they get all their mail-out free posts. They get their deposit all paid for. They don't even do much work. I mean, I'm actually friends with Idris, because I was his election agent for the Brexit Party at the mass count. So I split up with them when Lee Anderson joined the party, and it became a little bit too Islamophobic for me, with him calling all Muslims Islamists. I was shocked and horrified by that, and the way that the Reform Party just bought an MP, basically. Whereas George Galloway got elected, and a few weeks later they're like, buy Lee Anderson, cash. You know, it's all a bit, doesn't sound right, didn't fit right, and it wasn't the right party for me anyway. But still, Idris, he's a Muslim and he's a good guy. He's got a family, and we're still friends. And through this election, we've actually been working together a bit to kick the two cheeks on from the left, from the right, and the left in different ways. So we'll see where Reform get to. But they've had a lot of negative press. I think they've had 24 candidates deselected for mostly Islamophobia, and it's, I don't think, a good choice for the country, really. They've got some well thought out policies that Workers' Party actually share on a lot of subjects, but it's just the rhetoric that's being used, and some of the candidates, and Lee Anderson, I don't really want to be associated with in that sort of movement at all. Plus, they're Thatcherite economics, they're nothing to do with ours, and they want to really just help the wealthy out. It's a new conservative platform, really. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But once we, I think, gain some traction and we get the sort of funding that they've got next time, it will be interesting. At the moment, we were all self-funding. 150 people have come forward, paid their own deposits, and done all that themselves, which is what people, I think, will vote for. We've done it with our hearts, not with some Tory donors' cash. Anyway.
So yeah, initially I did ask you, guys, if there's any questions, please put them forward in the chat, and we can put the questions forward to Brother Paul. When I asked you initially regarding the debates that are taking place over the pond and of course here in the UK, and I do think that they were planned. I think they were planned, and these four people, the leaders, and guys, feel free to write something in the chat. What do you think of Joe Biden, Trump, Rishi Sunak, and Keir Starmer? Feel free to write what you think, long as it's respectful, of course. Feel free to write, but I do feel that it was planned, and it goes to show that, for me, I think democracy is shattered because people watch these individuals try to debate, and they seem to have the same policies. Don't you think they have the same policies?
They're all supported by the same corporate interests. George Galloway was interviewing Lee Camp on his Have It Out with Galloway show yesterday, and Lee Camp was talking about the state of American politics. So I do tend to agree that these debates may be planned in some sort of coordination, because both Labour and Conservatives and the Republicans and the Democrats are all controlled by the same corporate interests at the end of the day. And we need to look into who's controlling, whose interests are these, especially with issues like net zero and this great British energy scheme of Keir Starmer's. Who is this really going to benefit is one of our questions, and hopefully we'll be able to pose in the next Parliament.
Yeah, there's another thing. I was talking to some of my colleagues at work, and I asked him, in about 25 years or 30 years time, how do you think this country, the UK, will be like? And you know what he said? He goes, Mohammed, you ever seen the film The Hunger Games?
Oh God. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's interesting. He goes, and he lives in Bedworth, which is another area just outside of Coventry. He goes, I can see in about 20, 25, max 50 years that the divide between the rich and the poor is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be really bad. And the law for the rich is going to be a particular law, and the law for the poor is going to be a total different level of law. What do you think, Paul? If people don't make the change now,
real change. We need real change. We need a Scandinavian model at least.
Explain that.
Well, Denmark, I work for a Danish lighting company, so I've been to Denmark a lot, and I've also been to Sweden and Norway. And these models that they have over there are much more socialist. The people are paying more tax than us, but they are getting it paid back in public services. You go to Copenhagen or Oslo or Stockholm, the streets are clean, the buildings are lovely, they're doing tons of construction work, and it's all paid for out of the pockets of rich people, to be honest. And the rich people don't mind. The Tory threat is that you increase wealth taxes and things like this on billionaires, they're going to flee the country. There's not many of them, and they aren't going to flee the country because this is where their businesses are based. Anthony Bamford or whoever the billionaire is. These people have got enormous estates, and to be honest, I believe a lot of them want our streets to be cleaned up as well, and they will pay for it, and they won't leave. And just like Scandinavian model, we'll benefit from this together as a community, and that's how they work. And as a consequence, places like Denmark, Norway, are constantly at the top of the happiness leagues. Countries surveyed in the world, those people are the happiest through that socialist model. It's not Keir Starmer's socialist model. It's more of the Benite model we've got, I believe, and that I think can prevent the Hunger Games sort of scenario you're talking about. Hopefully,
it's interesting. There's quite a few statements here in the chat. The rich look after the rich, no doubt about that. And you have to have money to be heard. That's what initially you said regarding people donating towards the major parties and so forth. But the lobby system in America, the rich are just funding their own little policies. We had a question here from Sister Salika, who's here in the UK. What are your policy for change? That's a big question.
Assalamu alaikum, Salika. That is a big question. We have a fully comprehensive manifesto here. It's rather detailed, but to summarise, I guess part of it is the nationalisation of industries that I think we can work on first of all, and along with wealth tax, it's cutting the imperialistic wars out. It's chopping the defence spending, I'm afraid, keeping a reserve force, but really slashing the nuclear spending to fund that into real change on the ground. That's something that the Labour Party and other parties are going to do. We're really the only one promoting that and leaving NATO as a policy. Once we're out of the wars in Ukraine, supporting Israel, supporting wars in Yemen, this sort of thing, whatever the next war in southern Lebanon is going to be, or who knows, that's really, I think, going to transform our society into a more Chinese, outgoing, friendly society where we work with the BRICS countries. And we also really take full advantage of the Brexit situation. The Conservatives have failed us on this. They've not deregulated as much as we could. I don't mean deregulate on sort of workers' rights and things, but to really break with the European tradition that they've dragged us into on many laws and set up our own that fit our needs better. I can see massive savings coming from this, and cost benefits, and just making our country more attractive to deal with to the BRICS countries, and transforming our trade that way as well, which we haven't really had advantage of in Brexit. we're still tied to European goods laws and VAT thresholds in Northern Ireland. So we haven't really properly Brexited to the extent we could do. And they're also, we haven't established the principles of free trade. We've responded to the EU to putting customs tariffs, for instance, by putting our own customs tariffs of 4% on stuff. And we don't really need to do that. There's ways of making free trade more available that we should work on, I think, better, and get the Brexit deal done properly.
Okay, questions are coming in, Paul. Are you guys got time to?
Yeah, sure. It's still
sure?
raining.
It's still raining.
We can't do much canvassing
okay.
at the moment.
What are your thoughts on reform?
They're too Islamophobic for me, is my immediate response. But they do have many good policies. Richard Tice has thought out ways of chopping the interest on our debt and things like this, reforming the Bank of England, reforming the House of Lords. We agree on a lot of issues. On Brexit, we agree on a lot of things. Galloway has spoken with Nigel on that issue in the grassroots campaign for the Brexit referendum. But there are issues we deeply disagree on concerning, their economic model, their immigration model, their scapegoating of immigrants, and if it's not the evil Russians, it's the Labour Party, it's the evil immigrants of the Reform Party. So it's this sort of scapegoating and bad rhetoric I don't like about those. And like I say, a lot of policy issues as well. That's some thoughts on reform anyway.
Okay. I think it was 60 million so far we've spent or gave to NATO so far this year. 60 million pounds that we gave to NATO so far. And
60 million or billion?
60, you could be right. 60 billion.
I think it's
a million to this government's probably nothing.
I think it's 57 billion.
60 million
total combined defence spending.
Gave, to NATO.
2.5% of our GDP, which we're down to. And if Trump gets into power, he'll bind us to it as well. I think what the UK wants is not only independence from the EU, but also independence from the US, and most importantly, independence from Israel. That's what I think Workers' Party can achieve, which the Reform can't. They're going to keep us tied to the USA. Trump is that with Nigel Farage. And they'll keep us tied with Israel through that as well. We'll still have to. Labour won't, ban arms sales for Israel. They won't cut ties. They won't demand the return of Palestinian refugees and prisoners like we will. We'll go even further than any party, the Green Party, and everything on those issues to seek change in Israel, along with in Britain and Palestine, the Holy Land, as we like to call
it. Thank you, Paul. We've got another question from Abdullah. Assalamu alaikum, Abdullah. Thank you for joining us, brother. How are you going to build coalitions with other parties to implement change?
Well, that's a very good question. Well, we're already building that with the Coventry Citizens Party. One of their members, Marcus, is a dual member of both Workers' Party and ourselves, and is in our groups. He's come out leafleting with John, and we've formed an alliance there, which we're going to have a cross-party post-election meetup about, along with, I hope, Dave Nellist of the Trade Union and Socialist Coalition, and possibly even with Idris of Reform. And I'm just looking for defectors, actually. I wouldn't mind even if Zara Silhana wants to come along to this, because she is the right candidate in the wrong party. Whereas Dr. Muhammad Ali for Coventry South, he's actually the right candidate in the right party. And I believe I'm the same in Coventry East against Mary Cray, who is not only a Zionist friend of Israel, but in lobbying groups supporting utilities companies that are, making massive profits and ripping off the public. So she also is a hardcore Remainer who was booted out of the Wakefield seat in the 2019 election and has parachuted into Coventry, really against the wishes of the people, I think. I mean, 65% of Coventry voted or more voted for Brexit, and she will probably take us out of the EU if she could, as quick as lightning, which is not in our people's interests, along with being a Zionist friend of Israel. I mean, she's been to Lebanon like me, but her thoughts on this and being a Zionist friend of Israel is really, I don't think, what the people of Coventry want at the end of the day, not with the genocide that's been going on and what Keir Starmer has done over this period, in comparison to George and what George Galloway's been doing, forming a new party to oppose it all.
I seen a clip recently of the lady. She's wearing the red dress. I've got the name now. She was in a community centre. A short clip where she was asked regarding Palestine, her stance on Palestine, and then she said, I forgot her name now. If you guys can remind me what the name, I think she's the secretary of the deputy secretary of the Labour Party, long hair.
Angela Rayner with
Yes,
red hair.
yes. She was saying that if we get elected, the Labour Party, that we will stand for Gaza and Palestine. She was in like a group of like looks like a mosque or a community centre, cultural centre, and she said, look, if you vote for us, we will stop the war in Palestine. And do you think that's really desperate? I've got the clip here. Have you seen the clip of her? It is on social media. It is on social media.
I'm not sure many people are going to buy that from the Labour Party after their actions. Like I say, Keir Starmer calling for the electricity and water to be cut on with Nick Ferrari on LBC was a bit horrifying.
Keir Starmer said.
Yeah. And Zara Sultana can call for the end of arms sales to Israel all she wants, but Keir Starmer will stick his finger as it is, and it won't be any action on that.
As soon as the election is over, Keir Starmer will clamp down on MPs. They toe the party line,
and there's tens of thousands of troops aligning on the Israeli and southern Lebanon borders as well. And you talk about timing, but I believe that war is going to happen very shortly after this election.
You reckon?
I think there's going to be a Hezbollah-Israel war very soon. There's been rockets fired over that border each way, and I think 100,000 Israelis have evacuated from the Golan.
You see, the big danger is when Starmer gets in, you'll have a very pro-Israeli PM in a very important state in the world, and the Israelis may take it as a green light to invade, knowing they're going to get the full support of the UK. Now, when that happens, Israel cannot win the war by itself. It will need outside support. The Americans are sending another aircraft carrier into the region, and the Israelis are going to expect the Americans to bail in and help them out. If that happens, then that could involve Russia and Turkey, and before we know it, we may be on the verge of a world war. It may not happen in Ukraine. It may happen around about Israel
and Iran.
Well, the Israelis have expected the Americans to take out Iran for them.
Well, this is actually something I'd like to point out on workers' policy on immigration, funnily enough, where we are ahead of reform, I believe. The UK has naval bases in Oman and Bahrain, where we've got large fleets. We've got battle groups, I believe, in the Red Sea, and we've also got one in the Mediterranean. And Workers' Party policy on immigration is to look at it, form a consultancy again, figure out what is the cap. David Cameron said it was tens of thousands. We're now up to 650,000 a year, which is not sustainable for a country our size. We need immigrants. We need them to support our industries, and we need skilled labour in certain areas. So we've looked to set a cap on that and then patrol the channel. These 50,000 plus migrants coming across a year, it's a risk to life and limb, and it can't go on. And this Rwanda policy is not a deterrent that seriously is going to stop it. What both Reform and the Workers' Party are calling for is to leave the ECHR and get Brexit done properly, so we don't have their judiciary in charge to overrule our lawyers, but also to put boats into the channel, Royal Navy, to turn the boats around. France aren't doing the job, and both Reform and Workers' Party policy would be to do that. But Workers' Party would actually go further. I've heard George Galloway call for the return of those battle groups from the Oman and Bahrain bases to patrol the channel and turn those migrants around that are risking their life and limbs and are victims of people smugglers. And Keir Starmer won't stop the people smugglers any faster than sooner. It's one policy that's a little bit different on.
Awesome. So guys, keep the questions coming in. This is a breakfast show with Paul Bedson, and looking forward to tonight's podcast. And hopefully, we'll have some more members joining us later on today at 7 p.m. UK time. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share. And let's get this. Okay, which party is Paul from? It's in the title. I love questions like that. You know one thing I like when people ask me, what's the podcast about? What's the title of the podcast? And the podcast title is
Workers' Party.
As you can see, the Workers' Party.
They should have it on to make it more obvious, I guess.
So I think for me, I think this is the first time I've seen the Working Party, Workers' Party here in Coventry. And the only way I think you've got to be consistent in your appearance here now in Coventry. People see a lot of people come and go. Faces change. They want a personal interaction with somebody who's reliable. Like the councillors, like I said, I'm going to go back to the councillors here in Coventry. The only time you see them is when it's time for re-election. Otherwise, they're doing 6 months in Pakistan as a holiday, or 6 months or whatever, whichever country they originally come from. And I think the goal here now, I think, as in Coventry, is to show your face as much as you can, and people will bond with you and they'll remember your face and they will support you. This is the thing about the community here in Coventry. They are very warm. They will, embrace you. And I think once that embracement is done, I think, God willing, Coventry will be a stronghold for your party, no doubt about it.
Well, that's the response I've had, especially around this area. And I'm not going anywhere. I'm working at Parcel Force in the evenings up at the Coventry Pro Logis Park in CV6. I've just been offered a permanent role there after working 2 years on 0 hours contracts for them. I'm also just selling my range of portable lighting for my Danish company to the likes of Screwfix and B&Q is one of our latest deals I've done there. So we also work with Stanley Black & Decker and top international countries around the world, from France to the US. So I'm here to get deals done with other parties. A local lad, not going anywhere, and looking forward to getting involved with more local issues with the Coventry Citizens Party, and maybe even standing with council. But getting more of my posters up around here, my face on the shop signs, meeting the local businesses, meeting concerned people who there's a lot of them out there who really just 40 of the 50% maybe don't even know who to vote for, what to vote for, have no reason to vote. And I think we'll see that in the turnout figures tomorrow. There won't be. I'd be lucky if we get above 50%. I think it would be possibly lucky this time, 60% perhaps, but it's dwindling, and we want to make a change there really and get people out to vote, give them something to vote for. So we'll see what happens.
Just going through some of the statements. There's some statements, but not many questions now. Guys, keep your questions coming in, and inshallah we can put it forward. It's still raining here in Coventry, so we're hoping to go out once the rain stops, I'm assuming. Yeah.
Maybe we'll go out with an umbrella, I suppose.
Yeah,
so we've got to get these leaflets out sometime.
Yeah.
I've got a SWAT bag full.
I think I might have to leave a poster here. I'm sure Zaid will let you know.
I
think last time he gave it to me, and I gave it to my
well,
kids.
I've got white tack or blue tack I can put it up with, so you can take it down easily tomorrow. Won't damage his window. But it's been gorgeous here. And
typical British weather, absolutely. Do you think summer's over, guys? I think summer is not over. I think, inshallah, after a week or so, we'll get the sun. So, after watching the debates, this is both of you guys, I find the debates really amusing, especially with Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak. And they seem to fall over each other for their support of Israel. And I've seen that with Joe Biden and Trump. I love Israel more than you, and we'll do this. And Trump was saying, I would give him the green light to go and finish the job. I'm like, and we know what George Galloway's stance is regarding the situation in Palestine, and of course, West Bank. And it's very heartwarming when you hear George Galloway on a big platform express his thoughts on that. Do you think Keir Starmer might take a U-turn on his stance on in Palestine, or is it too late now for him to take a U-turn after listening to the young lady in front of the Muslim community saying that, oh, if you vote for us, we'll try to get a truce or a ceasefire in Palestine.
I think he's been forced into saying some things to appease the crowd, but I don't think he's really going to make any change in policy. He's really going to support. What he's done is parachute in candidates to Corbynite and anti-Zionist Labour Party members and replace them with people like Luke Akehurst in North Durham, who has made some very offensive comments about Palestinians, like I say, and is a shill for the Israeli lobby. And there's many candidates, and I fear Mary Cray in Coventry East is one of them, who she was a Labour leadership contender against Corbyn. And I believe her policy is at heart entirely hostile to the Palestinian people. And again, if something happens to Starmer, I expect Mary Cray will be right there to replace him as another cardboard cutout, really funded by the Israel lobby, to their beck and call. They can call for ceasefire now, but they're not going to stop arms sales. They're not going to put any extra pressure on. They're not going to go as far as Galloway would do, as he's expressed. There's actually a tick chart of all the different things that the different parties would do to put pressure on Israel, and Workers' Party has them all ticked, whereas Labour's only got a couple, and Green Party are doing better than most, but it's still not as far as we would go.
Regarding Starmer, he's not part of a solution, he's part of the problem. Starmer is an avid Zionist, and he will support Israel to the very end.
And he won't call it a genocide. He will never call it a genocide. He is
a Zionist. We must get that into our minds. He is on the opposite side, and he cannot be changed or reformed. You can put on pressure, but it will only be for a very short time. And he will give Israel anything and everything he wants.
Well said, yeah. And,
well said, John.
I fear Workers' Party is the only thing that can stop it. I fear Workers' Party is the only thing that can stop it within a reasonable timescale, anyway.
Yeah, last time during the election, 2019, I supported Zara Sultana for Coventry South. I was even out on the rain on polling day, and it was a very wet day, let me assure you. I had to have a change of clothing at least twice. I brought friends around, but this time I am now supporting the Workers' Party because of their stance on Israel, on Gaza, and against the drive in the direction of war. Because we are in a very dangerous situation in the world, and world war could break out in several places, whether it's in the Red Sea, in Israel, in the Ukraine, or even against China.
Yeah.
The Americans are pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, and they are not saying no to anything, to any restraint whatsoever. And the Workers' Party is the only party which is warning people about that. No other party has even given it a single thought.
Yeah, Workers' Party are the anti-war party. We want no wars, full stop.
Yeah.
And I guess that we're the only party that also wants a referendum on NATO, and we want out of NATO.
I like that.
That is where the imperialist wars from Iraq to Libya to Syria, hundreds of thousands of lives have been lost. And yeah, that's our primary policy. Number one on our 10-point plan is end imperialistic wars. After that, reindustrialize Britain, and we've got a radical economic plan for that. But it's very much like Corbyn's plan after that, to be honest. What he stood on in 2017, I actually stood with him again. I was out supporting the MP at the time, Colleen Fletcher. I got photos with her and meeting all the councillors over in it was Stoke Ward, I know, but yes, that's put a crucifix on them perhaps, but yeah, some of them are good guys, but they really, I think, in whole betrayed Corbyn and that platform, and to have what happened there is Keir Starmer came to Coventry actually, and with Corbyn they had a speech at the university, and he reversed Corbyn's Brexit policy, which had got him a lot of votes in 2017. And he said he wanted to join a customs union, not the customs union. And I just didn't buy it, and no one did. And Corbyn reversed on Brexit and lost the votes he needed in 2019, in my opinion, due to Starmer, U-turning on that policy, which he will flip-flop on every policy he's mentioned, I reckon. We'll see Labour chaos just as equally as we've seen Tory chaos. It's just the cigarette paper between them.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in the chat wishing you guys well for the elections here, the general elections. So there's quite a few people here.
Thank you.
We have got a question, and if you want to take it, you can. It's probably a troll. We call them troll on social media. So the question is, why is George supporting Gaza if he is anti-war?
Okay, I've got a good answer to that, and it's the kind of Piers Morgan troll that you get. He trolls every interviewer he has with the question, do you condemn Hamas? Well, my answer to that is very simple. I condemn all violence. Let's get on to the next topic, which is, what is that violence caused by? How do we solve it? That's how I would answer that troll.
That's good. That's good. So, guys, if there's any more questions, please put them in the chat, because we've got to finish off shortly and get on the path of canvassing here in Coventry.
I've bought my umbrella, unlike Rishi Sunak, so he can't even take things on in the rain.
Do you think Rishi Sunak? This is my question for you, Paul. And John can add on. I can't see if Rishi Sunak gets kicked out number 10 now. I can't see him living in the UK. I think he'll pack his bags and with his young daughters and his wife and go to live in America. I remember on Question Time, I think, or the debate, he was asked regarding the NHS, and he said somebody required asking, why is the NHS so important to you and how does it affect you? And then he gave his examples of his two daughters, that I want my two daughters to be able to use the NHS and stuff. And I'm thinking, this guy is a probably 300 million kind of like bank account. He's got money that's coming out his ear holes, right? I can't see him using the NHS. I can't see his daughters waiting in A&E up the road here for 8 hours to get to see the doctor. I can't see him waiting for a year or 2 years to get an appointment or an X-ray.
Or an hour 30 waiting time for an ambulance. Or
I can't see him doing that. So a lot of baloney. But do you think he'll stay here after the elections, or do you think he'll leave?
I would tend to agree with what most people think, is that there's an awful lot of money to be made on the speaking circuit in the USA. So if you can go and make $1 million a speech over there, I don't suppose he'll have any worries.
I think he might take the page out of Tony Blair's book.
And Boris Johnson, and
if you have a look at the history of Sunak, his job, if one can call it that, was working for the big finance company, which you can call a finance company, but are basically speculators, and they speculate on disaster. We have several examples. They speculated that a pound would go down in 2008, and Sunak was actually part of the group of the company that caused the crisis in 2008, for which his company gained a king's ransom, and yet he's back trying to pretend he believes in the UK. As soon as this is over, he'll go to San Francisco, somewhere warm, where warm, safe, and he'll join a big company and just rake in the money from speculation. Whereas, and don't forget, that speculation is a speculation that forces up prices that we have to pay for.
Yeah, we're going to discuss his wife's interest in pharmaceutical companies and things as well after the COVID crisis. But I think that's all that people like that look out for, and it's probably highly likely he'll maybe lose his seat. We'll see on Thursday, but you never know.
His range should have been gone by now.
Yeah,
just a bit late. We might have to have a look at that.
I'm very got to do something.
You're going to walk it there, I'm assuming.
Could do, or my car's just parked over the
Yeah.
road.
Okay.
Needed.
So I picture of yesterday. But what is it? Oh, but so it's through a letterbox that was sealed. I tried to put on that. So I
Yeah, so
picked them. Just have a read.
interesting to know what the other side's up to sometimes.
That's probably better than that. There you know, it's not got.
That's the one where he calls for a new workers' party.
Is it? I haven't actually read it up.
Hello, why are we standing together? I again feel this is a bit of yeah, we stand combined on a lot of issues actually. And then just to relate that into one of the questions you were saying about what Richie Sunak is doing and how he's controlled by money. Dave Nellis isn't controlled by money so much. He's actually, one of his pledges is to take a skilled worker's wage. And he did that when he's in Parliament, to be fair. He didn't take the £90,000, he took a skilled worker's wage. I've actually pledged the same because he joined after me in this election race. And I was concerned over this and how I could actually get a step ahead, or at least combine with him. So one of the things I'm working with, well, I put forward to Dave is that if I get elected, I will also take that skilled worker's wage. Although I would debate with him if it should be incrementally increased with length of service, spent. So his 9 years of service will probably count for more than 9. But I'd look for obviously a slight increase every year to go with service. But my first year, I would take a skilled worker's wage, to be honest. And I've pledged that to go. Where's our difference, Dave? I will take that the same socialist pledge you have. We'll stand on the same platform, hopefully. We'll discuss it tomorrow.
We've got to do something.
Yeah, I think we've got to get out, haven't we? We've got much left of the day. So.
Have you got to be back at work or what?
No, I won't have a shift today, I don't think. I think they've cancelled me, so I've got a bit of time to win the election.
Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for watching, guys. This is a first for my channel, Covff. I appreciate your comments and your chats, your support, your likes. But don't forget, tonight, 7 p.m. UK time, we'll be live with a show with Paul and other members of the Workers' Party of Britain. Appreciate everything, guys. Like I said, if you don't make a change now, you know what, guys, I don't listen to music, but back in the days, I think there was a song by Tupac, if I'm not wrong, where he said, there's war on the streets and war in the Middle East. And that was probably about 20 or 30 years ago, maybe, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, and that's like 20, 30 years ago. And what's the difference from there, from 20, 30 years ago to now? The same stuff. There's changes, that's right, changes by Tupac. So, look at the situation that we're in now. It's exactly the same, and unfortunately, the oppressed are being punished by the crimes of the West. Oh, that's a rhyme there, guys. That's a rap. So
I've actually got more to add on that, if you like.
yeah, sure, go ahead.
Just about, it's not just 20 or 30 years, it's been 75 years, I think, since 1948, when the Nakba happened. And as George Galloway says, Britain decided to give the land of one people to a second people.
Third people, yeah.
But going back a little bit further, and as this is a faith-based channel, I'd like to just discuss Zionism a little bit more deeply than a lot of people understand. And a little bit about my own background. As I mentioned, I'm a Muslim revert, but I was brought up as a Christadelphian. And that's a sect that was born in Birmingham by a Dr. John Thomas, who went to America in I think it was 1834, where he started the Christadelphians with a policy of Zionism. He actually predicted that Israel would become a state again back in 1834, and then went on with Christadelphia means brother in Christ. They all call each other brothers like Muslims, to be honest. But John Thomas was actually seeking the truth. That was his premise in the Radical Reformation. And another brother called Robert Roberts took that on in Birmingham. And throughout the 1860s, all the way to 1890, I think it was, he was promoting the cause of Zionism around the Midlands. And really not searching for the truth in the way that John Thomas would. That's another issue. What they did, though, these Christadelphians, as one of the Protestant groups that forwarded this idea of Israel becoming a state again, That then coalesced in the 1890s with Theodor Herzl, who set up, and everyone will know, as the starter of Zionism, that then led to Balfour causing his declaration in the early last century. So that's just a little bit of history about it that I know about, and people might not. But just shows how Britain has been involved in this for, well, it's almost 200 years now, since the 1830s. So that's why I feel personally responsible for it, for my country's involvement in it, and it's part of my desire and my purpose and mission and passion to change it. So I just thought I'd add that to them, maybe knowledge there.
It's a great way to end the show. John, anything that you want to mention? I'll put the mic over there. Anything that you want to mention?
Oh, just on the policy of the Workers' Party towards industry in the UK. I used to work for a company called Marconi.
It's just around the corner. Isn't it here?
And Stoke as well. I worked at a large place in Stoke of the developing system for comms. And there we have a massive workforce of a few thousand of highly skilled engineers. That is now gone, and it hasn't really been replaced. Now, the type of industry we need in the UK is that of a high-skilled base. Whereas what is going on at the moment is we're heading towards a service industry type of arrangement with associated IT skills, but it's still a service industry or low-paid, unskilled work. So what we need is the type of industry which makes things and provides a service to the world. Okay.
That's a topic in itself, because we have we've got to encourage the young people to go out and work. Right now, the temptation for them is to get work that is untaxed, unofficial work.
Yeah.
And for them, I can go into a very controversial topic. For them, that's easy, suitable for them. No responsibilities of answering to a boss. You work in your own time. But the downside of it is illegal work, and if you get caught, possibility that you'll get sentenced. But again, it depends how many convictions you've already got. They might just give you a slap on the wrist. But sometimes going to jail is better than living within a property that you're not sure that you're going to get 3 to 4 meals a day, that you might be get access to go to the gym and maybe a qualification while you're in jail. There are other aspects of that. And me, like I said, quick history about myself. Like, I served in the British Army for about 10 years. I worked for the United Nations for 5 years, and I've done tours around the world. So I've seen a lot, dealt with a lot of trauma and situations where, it's quite, touch and go. I actually think national service, or encouraging people, especially the younger generation, to do national service is actually a good thing. Because what I learned in the army, I learned that it actually made me who I am right now. I wouldn't make it compulsory, but I would encourage it. I would love to get your thoughts on that, if you don't mind. And we can end up on that. Not make it compulsory, make it more attractive.
I believe that's what the Conservative policy is, really, because they've called for national service, but with the option to have community service as well. The school actually did community service over military service in the cadets, but I honour your decision to take up that, risk your life joining the army. And I think it's a good thing in principle, but I'm concerned about it at the current time with the fear of war with Russia. And I don't want kids conscripted into war particularly. But like you say, on a voluntary basis, I would like to see more of that sort of stuff, and community service if not. I would probably be on the community service side of it. But, more programs for youth is something we desperately need. If it's not military service, we need more youth groups, we need more activities for young people to get them away from the crime and the gangs and the knife crime that we're having at the moment. So that's something I would put the funding into, along with potentially voluntary military service.
Police forces. That's a good one.
Keeping it away from the conscription side of things and the wars.
Yeah.
I don't mind
But
people learning these
I do
skills,
feel
but
that the people who vote for it in the Houses of Lords and politicians, their children should be on the list first to
yes.
join the army. I'm not going to send my children to war when I know the politicians' children are somewhere in a posh university abroad studying for, you know what I mean, and that's very common. And but their kids have to go and join and experience that themselves. That's my thoughts on that. But like I said, coming from a military background, for me, I felt that it did help me, you know, to who I am now and the way I'm with my kids and my children. There's discipline, which I think is lacking these days. Discipline is a big thing, I think, and within the household. So that helped me. And of course, my grandfather, he was in the army. I think that's why it made me join the army, because my grandfather was in the army. And I want to make it, like I said, make it clear to the public watching that I want to make it compulsory. I would make it a bit more attractive. Not the fact that you can be sent to war, the fact that you'll be able to look after yourself. I'm not meaning the aspects of looking after is that you're able to wash your own clothes, you're able to iron your own clothes, your hygiene. You know, these days, hygiene levels of young kids these days is very minimum, and the dress code is quite poor and all. You know, when I was growing up, you know, your trousers had to be ironed, your shirt had to be ironed, pull your socks up, your shoes has to be polished. I mean, that aspect of, you know, the discipline is very important.
A great respect for the military, and actually, my family on my mum's side comes from an Irish background, like Mary Cray of Labour. They were Cassidys and had curly hair from Anna, but they came over in the early 1900s to Plymouth actually to serve in the First World War.
Right.
My great granddad and great granduncle, my great granduncle was Jim Cassidy, and he's on the Plymouth War Memorial after dying of Spanish flu in 1918. But my great granddad, he was served on HMS Colossus in World War One, and went on to be lost in the Battle of Paris in 1940, speaking 5 languages, working at Thomas Cook, and was presumed by the family to have been a spy and possibly passed in the concentration camps at Buchenwald or somewhere. So I have great respect for that in my family, and that heritage. Again, I kind of feel that that's important for kids to learn that sort of discipline and have that respect for that sort of thing. And also, I mean, it doesn't have to be in war. I would want to expand the Navy, really. If we have to protect our country and our channel and our borders, we need, if it's not in the Royal Navy, we would need a new border force or coast guards or something like this to do that job. And that sort of conscription where we protect our own is 100%. Really where I would be looking.
100%. This is some of the comments in here right now. Then why should we be sent abroad to fight another war when we can look after our own country? 100%. I agree with that.
I really think take a lot of it. Okay. In international law, the Treaty of Westphalia, about 1660 or something like that, defined the rights of states. And one of the basic rights of a state was the ability of that state to defend itself, which is enshrined in law. Now, with any sort of conscription, what would be of concern to me is that, as just happened in America, they just passed a law giving 80 billion to the Ukraine, but that in itself is not important because the most of the money will go to the American arms industry.
Exactly, yeah, it is.
That will what will happen.
That's money laundering, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, exactly. Now, but enshrined within that bill is a clause which gives the American state the ability to reenact post-Vietnam conscription for 16 to 24-year-old men. Now, they need that in order to prepare to have the body of men to go to war. So they are actively preparing for war. The type of scheme I would like in this country, and if they introduce such a scheme in this country, then you can bet your bottom dollar that that sort of clause would be inserted in it somehow. The scheme we need in this country is one to train the youth, to give them decent skills so they can get very good, well-paid jobs. That is the system we need. That's it. Thank you.
Perfect. Great way to end the show. Final words from Brother Paul here. So today, what will we be doing today? So just a brief explanation of what we'll be doing today.
Sure. I mean, with John's help here, we've got a lot of leaflets out throughout Coventry, and we're really just going to be focusing on the sort of Foles Hill area, which is, I think, where we're getting a lot of support. And we've covered a lot of the south end of Foles Hill Road with posters in the local businesses, and maybe I'll move up there with you guys and we'll split off and look really at the shops to get posters up again. I'll talk to Ziad about one in a minute, and just get that last election push over the line, fight for every vote we can get, and see what damage, what bloody nose we can do to the Labour, but to two cheeks of the backside tomorrow.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Have you got a spare?
A rosette?
Yes.
I'm sure.
I want one. Look, the point is you've got to make yourself known, in
Yeah.
highway.
Alhamdulillah, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching, and hopefully tonight 7 p.m. There'll be a part 2 to this, a live podcast. So look out for that. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, Covff. Really appreciate your support, and hit the like, share, and subscribe logo, and inshallah we can grow this channel and get the message out to the population of Coventry, and of course nationally, the UK. We have to make the move now, and you guys need to get out there and have your say. Thanks for watching, Brother Akil and Saikor and Sister Salika and everybody else. Thank you for your support. Really I'm appreciative of your support. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Toilet if that's finished.